Hey, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. Hello, replay viewers, and welcome to Lovely's Virtual Book Club. I am your host, Lovely, and today we will be discussing Against Technoableism, Rethinking Who Needs Improvement by Ashley Shrew. I'm so sorry about this technical difficulties. I keep popping in and out. My green screen is acting a little wonky, but that is okay. Before we, let me see if I can, no, it's because the book is green. What if I do this? Let's see. Now nobody can see them. There we go. Look at it. Look, maybe if I do this. What did I do to make it show up? Because everybody's disappearing. Here we go. Against Technoableism, Rethinking Who Needs Improvement by Ashley Shrew. Let me put that book down so everybody can quit disappearing. All right, so before we jump into that, as per usual, we have just a few announcements. Let me add those to the stage. Of course, we're going to be discussing this book. Let's go to the announcements. Let's do this. There we go. Okay. So our announcements. Okay, Mufasa. Join us at Lamb Library for a family-friendly movie and popcorn. All ages welcome. On this Saturday, July 19th at 3 p.m., we are going to be streaming Mufasa. Everybody's welcome. Please bring the kids, and you guys can eat as much popcorn as your heart is content. We have a fresh popcorn maker. I hope y'all can make it. All right. Classic crafting for social seniors. We're going to relax, relate, and release on, I'm sorry, there's something blocking my view. We're going to relax, relate, and release on the 21st of July. That's Monday from 2 until 3. Full moon bath salts and Tai Chi for ages 50 plus. Create soothing bath salts for the full moon, then relax and rejuvenate with a calming Tai Chi session to harness the moon's energy. Registration is required. And last I checked, which was today, there is still some room, so you still have some time. Please give us a call if this is something that you would like to do, and I know you would like to do it. It's being presented by one of my favorite librarians, Cynthia. And so if any of you have attended Cynthia's programs, you know she always has wonderful ideas and really fun things to do. So I hope that you can join her this Monday from 2 to 3 here at Lamb Library. And of course, last but not least, you know what? Here, let me try this because my computer is doing so many fun things. There we go. Last but not least, y'all, summer reading is still going strong here in the heart of Pueblo. Our theme this year is Color Our World. We are extending summer reading on through to June. We are still giving prizes away this whole month. We would love to see you come in, participate in one of our summer reading programs, come and pick up some boards for the youth in your life so that they can continue to engage in reading. Reading books during the summer can kickstart learning, boost test scores, build motivation and confidence, all while engaging the joy of reading. Again, summer reading is going from June all the way through August of 2025. If you have yet to participate, you still have time. We'd love to have you stop by and say hi and get some prizes. All right, let's go back to this. Boop. Perfect. Okay, so as we talked about, let's move this over here. I was about to say summer reading. That's kind of on my brain. There we go. Let's do this. Our book today is Against Technoableism, Rethinking Who Needs Improvement by Ashley Shrew. Let's give you a little bit of background on who she is. Let me see if I can do this here, y'all, so I can make it bigger so I don't have to see. So there we go. That's perfect. Okay. Ashley Shrew is an associate. Sorry, y'all, my computer is doing really fun things. I'm just going to have to ignore it. Ashley Shrew is an associate professor of science, technology, and society at Virginia Tech, where she works in philosophy of technology at its intersections with emerging technologies, animal studies, and disability studies. Shrew's current research focuses on the representation of disability in technological narrative and imagination. You can find out more about her current research at technodisability.com. Also, I just wanted to point out that I listened to the audio version of this book because of one of my own disabilities. And the person who narrated that was Maria Pendolino. All right, let me get out of this because it's jumping back and forth, and I don't like that. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's move on. Okay. So some of the awards that this book has gotten is one of Book Riot's 10 best disability books of the year. Let me put my little head in the bottom of the screen. There we go. It always seems weird to me that we got a disembodied screen. All right. So Against Technoableism was one of Book Riot's 10 best disability books of the year. It was released in 2024, and it was shortlisted for the non-obvious book awards. All right. Some themes and tropes that we are going to be discussing are going to be critiquing technoableism, challenging disability tropes, centering the disabled experience, reimagining disability and technology. All right, let's see. Before we jump into the discussion questions, I thought it would be really interesting if I read an excerpt. But before we do that, let me just remind you all to share the live stream. Please share the live stream. It lets the algorithm know that you like what I'm doing and that you're here to support me. So I would appreciate it if you'd share the live stream so that everybody else can become one of the cool kids and hang out with us on our show. Also, let me get rid of that. Boom. Okay, perfect. Let me check the comments real quick before I go on and read this excerpt. Okay. All right, let's start off with an excerpt from the book. Again, this book is available on Libby in an audio format in case that's more to your forte. All right. Chapter 1, Disabled Everything. Let me scooch up. Let's start the way you expect a good disabled memoir or Cripps story to start. Either with my horrible birth or my grave, brave injury. It could be my monstrous birth, a real term in medical history. By the way, where I was born and had to fight against great odds even as an infant, and my story could end in triumph where I continue to live and am writing a book about it. Or I could start with a freak accident that helped me steel myself against the cruel world, or even better, some gnarly war story. My heroism and sacrifice. The pledge I made to my brothers, siblings in arms, living so their deaths will not have been in vain, paying the toll of freedom with my body. Then I could show the abled how to really live, laugh, and love. Ooh, let's really lean into these narratives. Mix up the stories for some real pizzazz. I'm born disabled. No one thought I would live. But then I became of military age, and I use a machete to fight for your freedom. So young, so heroic, so very disabled. You could meme images of me with the words, "What's your excuse?" superimposed over my twisted body, swinging that machete as I sit atop DARPA-developed disability technology. A super duper soldier with an inspiring message of vanquishing one's enemies and one's disabilities with the power of technology. Or maybe I could just die young so you can tell my story. I won't sully my own good name by disappointing you with my normalcy. You could talk about how you learned so much from me or how I am no longer in my earthly prison, by which you mean my disabled body and mind. You can imagine me whole again, as if being disabled broke me, even though that's how I was born or how I live my life. My parents, if I have them, can pin the story of how they learned to love me despite my many challenges. They will, of course, have to share their story of grief about my existence. Is this the disabled drama you want? This kind of story might be what you expect or even desire, but it's not what you're going to get. Disabled people are often asked to curate their stories to front load their dramatic origins. I don't begrudge those who start this way, but I like the poetry of the cyborg Jillian Wise, especially the one where Cy, our disabled cyborg laureate, ventriloquizes a non-disabled audience member in Non-Disabled Demands. The non-disableds have dragged your dear cyborg up to the stage, and instead of asking about my poetry or any area of expertise, they demand Cy's disability origin story. You can't expect people to read you if you don't come out and say it. Before they will sit and listen to the rest, they need the story, need to find out how inspired they should be. I see the same thing happen over and over. Disabled experts and professionals are continually getting asked inappropriate personal questions when they are there to offer their professional expertise. They are not treated like other authors, scientists, social workers, or teachers. Sometimes their expertise is rooted in their personal histories. Whose is it? And a personal narrative is fine when they offer it, but sometimes they are treated as a sideshow, a curiosity added to an event, but taken less seriously than other experts. I see this play out most often for my autistic colleagues who have professional expertise in psychology, medicine, social science, human development, and education. They are asked to be a part of events about autism or neurodiversity, but they aren't treated the same as other participants, and they are very rarely paid the same, if they're paid at all. While I hate that disabled people are forced to tell their stories, I do love stories. In fact, parts of this book will involve some of my own tales. I just don't think that most disability origin stories are very interesting. Mine certainly isn't. Some are, don't get me wrong. There's a guy in one of my amputee groups who had his leg ripped off in a grain auger accident, and he did not pass out while he waited for emergency rescue. It's always a shocker for newbies in my amputee groups who have come with stories less gnarly. I love when he shares his story with obvious relish. He's got it well rehearsed for other amputees. This kind of sharing among those in the community is different, though. The lessons are different. It's usually not about being on the other side of something we've overcome. We survived or were simply born that way. Some of us also have PTSD, but we also have normal lives and do average things. We ask each other about how kids adjusted, how family members reacted. There's commiseration about dating and jobs. The improvements we see are incremental adjustments, sometimes nonlinear, with more surgeries needed, other conditions to manage, insurance woes, and equipment issues. We compare prosthetic feet and offer ideas about physical therapy. We don't all agree about how to approach situations, nor about what feet work best, nor about dating, for that matter. Things aren't tidy or managed. I like when it's just us, and I like when the stories aren't crafted for non-disabled expectations, like so many disability stories are. I think that's a good place to stop, or stop reading. So that's just the intro of the book. I really, really enjoyed this book. I liked how Ashley Shue, in the beginning, said that you do not have to read this book in a linear fashion. She did that so that you can just read the sections that you wanted to read, but also she is doing that to accommodate disabled people who maybe have a bit of brain fog. Maybe they're on chemo and their memory is, not what it used to be, or they're having to relearn how to cope with a new way of remembering things and what that means for them now. I do like that she made space for that type of a disability and that you can hop and skip around and read the book the way that you need to. Now, I did promise that I would talk about a little bit why I chose the audio book version instead of the print version. The audiobook version it's a little less than 4 hours. It's close to 4 hours. I think this book in total is like 150 something pages. Yeah, roughly 150 pages if you don't count all the notes and whatnot in the back. It's probably a little less than that. And part of the reason why I chose the audiobook, as I said before, is I am disabled. I have multiple disabilities, like she was talking about in the book. A lot of mine are neurodivergent issues, just the way that my brain was formed. And sometimes ADHD won't let me sit down and read a book. I can listen to an audiobook and weed the garden or wash the dishes or clean up. But sometimes sitting down and reading a book is just too much energy. So that's just one of them. As some of y'all know, sometimes I use a mobility aid. Sometimes you'll see me with my awesome golden cane. And that's my mobility aid because I have rheumatoid arthritis and or a connective tissue disorder. They're still trying to figure that out. They keep telling me different stories and different things. She discusses how difficult it is sometimes when you are disabled and you'll have other marginalized identities that intersect those. And look at your girl here. Here I am sitting up here, beautiful, Black, queer, and disabled. Physically disabled, I have a whole bunch of fun stuff going on. I like to use the term neurodiverse because I understand that sometimes y'all are going to judge I say y'all, that people can be judged for their disability. And sometimes I don't want to disclose. I'm not ashamed of who I am, but I don't feel like I owe that to everybody all the time. Just like she was saying in the beginning of this book, I really don't feel like it. Sometimes trying to justify how my brain and body works. Nobody else has to do it. I don't want to have to do it. So anyway, let's move on. But that's the reason why I do the audio is because my ADHD was winning. And I shouldn't say winning because, again, in the book, in the first few chapters, she talks about the different types of disabled people and how some people do like being the hero who overcame. They see their disability as something to conquer and something to cure or overcome. Sometimes they'll use person first language or they don't. It really depends on the person. I personally don't see my disability as something to conquer or overcome. I see it as an integral part of who I am, and it makes up my personality. So, for instance, I would not say that I was a person with autism. I would say I'm autistic. In the same way that I don't say I have autism. I don't say I have autism. I say I'm autistic. In the same way that I don't say I have Blackness or I have womanhood. I am Black. I am a woman. I don't have queerness any more than I have any of those other things, but I am queer. That is the difference. And I think it's super, super important. And again, she mentions it in the book that you need to find out how the disabled person wants to be referred to. Because some people do want to say that there's somebody with autism versus saying they're autistic. Everybody's going to be different, and it's up to you to be respectful and figure out how they want to be referred to and then do that and not chastise people on what you think they should say and what you think and how you think they should identify, because that's not really the point. Their life is. Anywho, let's move on to the discussion questions. All right. So let's see. We have a bit of time, so we'll probably get through most of these. We'll see. Question number 1, Shrew writes, this is a book about the stories that disabled people tell that non-disabled people usually aren't interested in. What does she mean by this? And in that intro that I read, that's why I read it. She talks about inspiration porn, and I hate to use that word so loosely and freely on here, but that's what it is called. A lot of time, people, especially if they have physical disabilities, especially if they're in a wheelchair or they're missing a limb or something like that, they are used to inspire other people. So basically saying, well, if this one-legged person could run a marathon, what are you doing with your two legs? They are only lauded if they, quote unquote, overcome their disability. And the truth of the matter is, because she gets into this in the chapter on amputees, is that the technology doesn't always work the way that we would think it would. A lot of times you lose your true wills, is what they refer to it as, when you have to get your equipment readjusted to work with you. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this book was how a lot of times when people would find out she was getting her leg amputated because she had cancer, they would be like, oh, well, the prosthetic technology now, it's so good. And blah, blah. They would always go for that, not realizing that sometimes those prostheses don't necessarily work that well, depending on how much limb is left to attach it to. So like if you have your amputee below the knee, or if you're amputated below the knee, it's a little bit easier than it is above the knee or even at hip. Because then you have more things that need to get fitted. So if it's below the knee, it's just that one prosthesis that you need to get fitted for, which is not an easy thing. Please don't mistake what I'm saying. It's not an easy thing for that to be done. It's just less parts of it that need to be fitted. And like anything with, like, you know, like let's say you get your car readjusted, and I'm not trying to compare people to machines, but you know, I guess we are kind of like an organic machine. But anyway, hold on a second, friend. But sometimes you have to go back to get readjusted. Not to mention that I'm trying to do something, y'all. Too many things at one time. There we go. There we go. I'm not trying to compare people to. Let me turn that down. There we go. Okay. Let me get out of here. There we are. Okay. Anywho, I'm sorry. I was trying to see what is going on so I could figure out what's going on with the computer. That is totally fine. So, you have to get things recalibrated. Not to mention that a lot of these prosthetics are terribly expensive. Terribly expensive. Another thing that she discussed in this book that I thought was interesting was how sometimes these technologies are used to make a disabled person appear more able-bodied. Like, for instance, when an amputee is for your hand, a lot of times they will try to make hands that look like a non-amputated hand with 5 fingers and whatnot, when honestly those things don't even work that well sometimes. Like, you don't need your prosthesis to look like a hand if it's not going to work. They do have a lot of cosmetic prostheses, just little 5 hands that really don't do anything, when really you might need a pincher to grab stuff. That only takes 2 things. You don't even really need a hand, just a little pincher kind of motion or action. But because that makes non-disabled people uncomfortable, a lot of times people have these very expensive prostheses for cosmetic effect, but also they want to get treated fairly. They want to get treated better. And that's why a lot of times, like, blind people or people who have lost one eye, they'll get a glass eyeball. Why do they need a glass eyeball? They can't see. They can't see out of that glass eyeball. So why do they get one? For the rest of us with 2 eyeballs, so we're not uncomfortable. So it's about making everybody else comfortable versus what's functional for them. You know, maybe an eye patch would do, but then they'd have to deal with pirate jokes all the time. And that's another thing that I'd like to talk about. Again, I mentioned how sometimes I use a mobility aid when my knees are, you know, when I'm having a flare up. And she talks about this too, depending on how young you are. Y'all, I'm 51 years old, and people still talking about I am young. I mean, I don't feel ancient or anything, but I don't feel as young as they think I am. But they don't think that I need my cane when I use it. And I can't tell you how many people think it's a ha-ha funny joke to try and take it away from me. Or they'll come up to me and go, what's wrong? And I'd be like, nothing, because I really don't understand what they're talking about, because I've been dealing with joint pain since I was 6 years old. So I'd be like, nothing, because my disabilities are not at the forefront of my mind. It's usually lunch. If you really want to know the truth, it's what am I finna eat next? And so they'll come up to me and be like, what's wrong? And I'm like, nothing. And they go, oh, then you don't need that. Like, they think it's a joke. And I'm like, actually, I do need this. It actually helps me to get around better than if I'm pretending like I don't need it and putting extra strain on my knees, which causes me to have a longer recovery rate because I was pretending like I'm not disabled. Another section in the book that she talks about, we just skipped half of these questions. Hang on. I probably answered a whole bunch. Another thing that she does talk about, let's talk about this. I want to talk about this question here. Where is it? How did this book change or enrich your understanding of disability technology, including wheelchairs, prostheses, cochlear implants, fidget spinners, Pokemon, or Reddit? So let's talk about it for a little bit. I'm getting out one of my fidgets. I have several in here. But one of the things that she talks about in this book is how disability technologies, again, are set up for non-disabled people. Like she talks about how people in wheelchairs are often lauded for getting up out of the wheelchair and walking, even though it might be easier for them to use their wheelchair or rollator to get around. Another thing that she mentioned about one of her friends who is a wheelchair user and how inconvenient it was for her friend, not that the friend was in a wheelchair, but how they had to take extra time on campus because they both went to school and or taught at Virginia Tech. And this friend had to know all these different routes and stuff to avoid stairs because of the way the world was designed. So I think that's one of the key components of the book is how it talks about how we try to design tools and whatnot for the disabled so that they fit into a world that wasn't made for them or made for us, instead of integrating their disability into the rest of the world. Like, for instance, let's talk about the stairs that her friend had to spend so much time avoiding. Most people would be fine with a ramp or a sloping type of a sidewalk that not only wheelchair users could use, but somebody like me who needs a cane from time to time, it would be easier because those stairs, even though I can manage them, it still hurts. And so instead of having to wait on an elevator, which, again, if you want to be in there with that nasty recycled air, trying to avoid COVID, I'm going to use the elevator when I get done here. So I'm not trying I'm not trying to be funny or anything, but you do have to think about this, or a lot of people have to think about stuff like this. I personally don't like wearing masks, but I also like getting pneumonia and bronchitis a whole lot less. So I guess I'll just be wearing this mask until we can get this stuff figured out. Because guess what, y'all? The pandemic isn't over just because you're over it. There's people still dying from COVID. They honestly are. And I don't want to find out how many times you can get COVID before it's your last time. Y'all can do what y'all want to. Y'all have fun raw dogging that air. I won't be joining you. No, thank you. Another thing that she talks about in this book is again, we were talking about the intersecting identities and how people get treated differently because of those things, or because of other people's biases. I hate putting the blame on me because I'm beautiful and Black. That's the way people treat me. Because of that, it really ain't got nothing to do with me. It's all those other people. But it is a lot of identities to have to maneuver and navigate through on top of chronic pain. So much fun. Anywho, I wanted to talk about what else. We were talking about fidgets. Let me reread that question because I kind of go on a tangent. Let's see. Again, how did this book change or enrich your understanding of disability technologies, including wheelchairs, prosthesis, cochlear implants, fidget spinners, Pokemon, or Reddit? Let's talk about fidget spinners. So, one of the sections she talks about is neurodiversity, and there's something called ABA therapy, and how it there's a lot of criticism against it. Some people really, really like it, and are proponents of it, and other people absolutely not. A lot of the people who do not like it are disabled adults who had to go and do ABA therapy when they were children. And it was developed by a doctor who was trying to cure autism. Y'all, there is no cure for autism. There's no cure for it. It is just a different brain type. It's a different neurotype. I don't need a cure. There's no cure. It's like saying there's a cure for blue eyes or something. Those are just different color eyes. There's no cure for hazel eyes. There's no cure for, because there's nothing to be cured. It's just the way things are. I wanted to show y'all can't see it. One of my fidgets. Y'all cannot see how cool this is. Oh, look. I just had to put it here. This is one of my fidget spinners. It helps me when things get overwhelming, when I need to focus on something else, because she was talking about how she has tinnitus or tinnitus. And she was talking about this joke about deaf and hard of hearing people, autistic people, and people with tinnitus, and a dog, and that the dog is is the middle of the Venn diagram where we all overlap, because all four of us can hear loud sounds that nobody else seems to hear, or hear this high pitched sounds that nobody else seems to hear. I messed the joke up, but it's a funny joke. Anyway, because we were talking about ABA therapy, and part of it is to get people to behave and have consequences for doing things that are not quote unquote normal, and that would be stimming. And so a lot of time what ends up happening is that this ABA therapy is all about behavior, and kids are put through 8 hours a day. They say 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, for roughly, 1 to 2 years, could be 3, could be more. Part of the issue, the reason that it is because ABA therapy is the most widely covered therapy for children that insurances will cover. And it literally amounts to childcare that these kids' families otherwise might not be able to afford. And for a lot of children who do stimming, that can be harmful to themselves. Of course, we want them, don't hit your head on the table. You ever hear that joke? Why do you keep hitting your head against the brick wall? Because it feels so good when I stop. We don't want to encourage harmful stimming behaviors, but also having somebody be in therapy for 8 hours a day, or quote unquote therapy, because a lot of these things are not actually therapy. They're just called ABA therapy because they know that the insurance companies will cover it. Let me see what else, because I feel like I'm going off on a tangent. You know what? Here we go. Please remember to like the page. Please remember to like the page. Again, that lets the algorithm of Facebook know that you enjoy what I'm doing and you are here for all the good fun times. Also, sign up for the newsletter so you can get all the questions ahead of time. And that is where I send out the invitation in case you would like to come and have a discussion on screen right here with me. That would be wonderful. I would love to have you. And if you are not somebody who is comfortable appearing on screen, then you can just chit chat in the comment section, and I will do my best to answer those questions. Hold on, let me double check and make sure if I have any questions. Let me turn this down, because sometimes, did I accidentally do that? What happened? Oh, that's nice. I did. I accidentally touched something. Ooh, that's nice. Okay. So at any rate, let's go on to the next question. We're almost done. I'm going to wrap it up a little bit early today, but let me make sure. Oh, I did say sign up for my newsletter. Let me go back to this and say share the live stream, and let me get rid of this one here. Boom. Okay, so the next question, let's see. Ooh, this was really interesting part of the book. Why does outer space offer so many creative possibilities for disabled existence? Okay, so a lot of people don't know this, but there were a group of 11 men from Gallaudet University, that is the Deaf and Hard of Hearing University, that actually helped to train astronauts in zero G. And the reason why zero gravity, and the reason why they were so good at this is because people who are born deaf don't get motion sickness. There's something going on in the cochlear that the sloshy stuff does not happen to them. And so these men were able to test the effects of G-force on the body, all kind of weightlessness and whatnot, but nobody ever considered that they would make great astronauts. I would have sent them to space. Then you wouldn't have to worry about counteracting all these other things because they're not going to get motion sick. They're deaf. Another thing happened too in space. Something caught on fire, and then all the lights went out, and they couldn't put the fire out because they couldn't see where the fire extinguisher was. And an academic in this book said, well, that would be interesting to have a blind person in space because they don't need to see. They're used to already mapping out their route. Anyway, they would have known where the fire extinguisher was without having to worry about smoke or the darkness because, again, they're blind. Hello. Another proponent, I love the whole space thing. I thought that was so interesting. They were talking about sending people into outer space who had a lot of different things. One of them was a bone density issue. And they were like, well, my bones are already don't hold as much mass as people who don't have my condition. And I could actually use the time so I could be more pain-free in zero G, and you wouldn't have to worry about configuring certain things because I already know how to do this. Another thing, y'all do not know how yucky those spaceships can be because going to the bathroom can be very complicated, especially when you have to do number 2. And so a proponent, again, I'm sorry, I forget the woman's name. It's in chapter 5, though, when they're talking about disabled people in space and how disabled people really could be some of the next astronauts. But she said that she already has, it's not a colostomy bag, but it's a way that they can empty their bowels because they have a surgical incision right in their intestines. And she said that would eliminate the problem of these complicated toilets because she already has an incision. She could just empty it like she always does. And you wouldn't have to worry about the toilets breaking down. Y'all, outer space is gross and disgusting. It is nasty in them spaceships, and people don't smell that great. I'm sorry, I love outer space, so I know a little bit too much about the space stations with those poor people that had been stuck up there for so long. Anywho, I thought that was fascinating. And they are doing studies now with people who have amputees because, again, moving around in space is a lot different than moving around on Earth. And in zero G, the people who are amputees already have the experience that a lot of the astronauts have to train for. And so I really was like, oh my gosh, that is so amazing. I think I'm going to wrap it up in just a minute, but I would like to read this last little section in the back here. Let me see if I can. They're talking about, it was accessible futures. I think they were talking about preparing for a disabled future. I'm not going to go into a chunk of it, but this is one of the things that I really, really like. So I'll read this and then I'll double check and wrap things up, okay? This is why techno-futurist discussions of the end of disability are so silly. Disability isn't ending. We are going to see more and newer forms of disability in the future. This doesn't mean that all medical projects aimed at treating disease and disability are unpromising. I certainly hope we will come up with a better diagnosis and treatment for conditions like asthma and Lyme disease. But disability is multifaceted and a much larger category than can be covered by a simple case. No non-disabled person without experiential knowledge of disability and engagement with the disability community should be making claims or decision about the future of disability and disabled people. We need to prepare for the disabled future, becoming more comfortable with other people's disability, accepting the fact that we ourselves will eventually be disabled if we aren't already, learning to recognize and root out ableism. These are all moves toward building a future for everyone because the future is disabled. Working toward and planning for a future without disability, without disabled people, is a ridiculous prospect. And she's right. I promise you, if you live long enough, you're going to join the group. As you get old, your body starts to change and not work the way that it used to. And so we need to accommodate these things. We need to remember, making jokes about depends. That's not funny. That's not funny to the older people who could be wearing them. And it's not funny to the young people who hear you. And they're not going to tell you, I have to wear depends because I might, for whatever reason. Let me not even explain, because why would I do that? I think that that's so important that we start thinking outside of the box. If you haven't had a chance to read this book, I highly, highly recommend that you do. As a matter of fact, when I get done here, I'm going to turn in my audiobook from Libby. And then you can check that out. And I also have plenty of print books if the print book is your jam. I've got plenty of these on display right up front at Lamb. You can't miss it. It's on my display called Touch Grass. It's a joke. Anywho, I hope that you enjoyed this book as much as I did. I had a wonderful time reading it. Ashley Shrew has written a lot of other books as well. I am also going to recommend, if you enjoy, here, let me move my head. Boom. If you enjoyed Against Technoableism, Rethinking Who Needs Improvement, there are some other books that you can get at PCCLD. If that is wiggling around for you on the screen, I apologize. I don't know how to make that stop. But really quickly, Demystifying Disability by Emily Ladau. The Year of the Tiger, An Activist Life by Alice Wong. Alice Wong is amazing. I hope that you guys read that book. She is wonderful. The Anti-Ableist Manifesto by Tiffany Yu, and Headcase by Cole Cohen. And also, let me get out of this screen because it's making my head hurt. I don't know why it's doing that. I have no idea. I endeavor to figure it out. But anywho, thank you guys so much for joining me. I really appreciate you. Let me see if I can do this. There we go. Next month's book in August is going to be Without Children, The Long History of Not Being a Mother by Peggy O'Donnell Heffington. I had to scooch in and look at it. Again, let me get rid of this ticker tape, because you don't need to share the live stream anymore. It's fixing to be over. You can still share it. But please sign up for the newsletter. You will get all of the books that we are going to be reading throughout the year. This year, we are going to go all the way through December. I might have a few pre-recorded shows in here, depending on my own availability. But you still will be able to participate the whole year. We've had a book club every month. Well, we didn't have one last month, but y'all, I had a death in the family, and so that's why we did not have that one. R.I.P. Dad. Anywho, sign up for the newsletter. Share the live stream. Please like the page. Let me know if you enjoy what I am doing. I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining the live stream. Thank you, replay viewers, for watching. I see you and I count you. Every week you are counted too. I hope you guys enjoyed this book as much as I did. If you did not get a chance to read it, do not fret. You can come and pick up a copy here at Lamb Library. All right, y'all. Have a good rest of your day, and I will see you next month when we discuss Without Children, The Long History of Not Being a Mother by Peggy O'Donnell Heffington. Later. I'm smiling. You can't see, but later. Bye.